DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com, BallOverseas.com. This is the video that I told you in the last video that I was going to make, where I'm going to explain to you all why a player who you might have watched in college, who played high-level college ball, D1, major college ball, might go play overseas and you never see them again playing in the United States, and they just stay playing overseas, even though they may be good enough to play in the NBA, good enough to play in the G League, but they never come back and play there. Why does that happen? All right, first of all, let's get a couple things established. You can go on Google right now and you can look up, you can Google the salaries that players make playing ball in the NBA, right? Then you can go on Google, stay on Google, you can look up the salaries the players make playing in the G League. And you can see that there's a huge discrepancy between the minimum salary in the NBA and the maximum salary in the G League. The gap is not as close as my hands. The gap is way bigger, it goes off the screen. G League does not pay a whole lot of money, and the NBA pays a lot of money. So the only reason that a player plays in the G League is because they are looking to hit that lottery. And by lottery, I don't necessarily mean luck, but they're looking to hit the lottery, metaphorically, of getting a call up to the NBA and playing their way into staying on the NBA roster, on which they could go from a salary that's all the way down here to a salary that even the lowest salary is all the way up here. Now, I'm not saying that basketball players only play basketball because they're chasing money, but money is an issue because, listen, if you're working, you got to get paid, right? We all got to eat. We all got bills. We all got to pay for the thing, pay for our phones, pay our phone bills, take care of our families. If you got kids, you're married, all those things got to factor in. So money does matter, and money is going to be a big part of this conversation I'm having right now. So knowing this, if you look at the G League, 300 jobs in the G League. Every player who's playing in the G League is trying to get called up to the league so they can get that gig. But here's the thing you got to understand. Every player who's playing in the G League could be playing overseas right now instead of playing in the G League, or whenever this video comes out. Might be the off season. When you're playing in the G League, that's the only place that you could be playing, and the NBA can take you off your team and sign you to their team. So, for example, if you're playing for the Westchester Knicks in the G League, the New York Knicks can call you up from the Westchester team, take you off the roster, and put you on the New York Knicks roster. All right, that's the only place where you could be playing in the middle of a contract and just drop that contract and go play for another team, is if you're in the G League. If you're playing in Europe, for example, let's just say that you wanted to play in the NBA, you wanted to play for the Knicks, but the Knicks didn't sign you, right? And then you decide, all right, I'm gonna go overseas and I'm gonna take this deal in Belgium. You sign a contract, you're playing in Belgium, and you're killing in Belgium. You're averaging 40 points a game your first 10 games playing in Belgium, and everybody's talking about you. They got you on the front page of ESPN like, damn, how did the Knicks miss this guy? How did nobody sign this guy? How did the NBA miss out on this can't miss prospect? He's averaging 40 points a game in Belgium. The Miami Heat find out about you before everybody else, before ESPN runs the article, and they want to sign you. They can't call your agent or call you and just take you off that team in Belgium and put you on the Miami Heat roster. They can't do that. The reason why is because you signed a contract to play in Belgium, and every team in Europe honors the NBA's contracts the same way every team in the NBA honors Europe's contracts, which means if you sign a contract to play ball in Europe and you're an NBA level guy, but you decide to take the deal in Europe, and we'll get to a minute why you might do that, you're there for the whole season. You're there until or unless that team releases you out of that contract. So if the team in Belgium says, we're going to let you leave right now and you can go sign wherever you want, then you can go. But if that team in Belgium says, hell no, we're not letting you go, you signed a contract for a whole season, you scored 40 points a game the first 10 games, we got 40 games left, you ain't going nowhere because you signed a contract. You're there for the whole season. That's the way that it works. And has that ever happened? Somebody averages 40 points a game, the NBA's call? No, it doesn't happen, because first of all, no NBA team's even going to make a call about you because they honor the contract that you signed with that team in Belgium. And secondly, I never heard anybody averaging 40 points a game in the first league at any high-level European league anyway, because the game is not even set up that way. It's not as individualized as the NBA game. Now, here's the thing. You also got to understand the calendar of how basketball works. NBA training camps, usually, who knows what's going to happen in 2020 because of the whole corona situation, but usually NBA training camps begin around September, October. In European teams, and this whole conversation, I want y'all to understand, I'm talking about players who played high-level college ball, who could be on the fringes of an NBA roster. So I'm not just talking about any player, a player who walked on at a D3 or you play NAIA or JUCO. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about a player who could be a fringe player on an NBA roster, making their way on there, G League, all of that, okay? European teams, the highest level European teams who play like Euro Cup and Euro League, the top level teams across Europe, they make their signings. They sign players in the summertime. In June, July, August, they are signing their players. So think about this. Let's just say you played at Michigan and you did your thing. You were an All-American candidate and all this. You had great stats and you got drafted to the league, or maybe you didn't get drafted. You went to NBA Summer League in July, and now you got to decide what you're going to do. Your agent has a conversation with you, lets you know, look, this is the deal. No NBA team is going to give you a guaranteed contract, but 5 teams want you to come to training camp. The Thunder, the Knicks, the Wizards, the Warriors, and the Clippers all are inviting you to come to training camp. Training camp is not a guaranteed contract. That's me talking to you. That's not the agent. That's me talking to you. Going to an NBA training camp is not a guaranteed contract. You do get paid for going to training camp, but that doesn't mean you have a guaranteed contract for the season. Training camp is a tryout, but you got to get invited to that tryout. Unlike the G League tryout where you would just pay your way in, NBA training camps, you have to be invited and they pay you. So your agent is saying to you, Mr. Player who played at Michigan, 5 teams are offering you an invite to training camp, and this is their situations. And you would choose, you might be wondering, well, how does a player choose which training camp to go to? You look at the roster, you look at how many guaranteed contracts they have at your position. All right, which one of these teams actually have an open roster spot that I could earn? Because if you're going to go to training camp with the Wizards, and let's say they got 5 guards, all with guaranteed contracts for the upcoming season, you're probably not, and you're a guard, you're probably not going to make that roster no matter how well you play at training camp, because they already are committed to paying these 5 guys no matter what you do. So you would take a training camp offer. If you take one, you're going to take it with the team that actually has an open roster spot at your position, because that means there's a possibility you could actually earn your way onto that team. Now, is it possible, if you're just amazing, that team could get rid of one of those guaranteed contracts just so they can make room to sign you? Yes. But again, you're gambling here with your career and with your money. And let me keep explaining so you understand why. So if your agent tells you that you got 5 teams want you to come to training camp, let's say it's August 1st, right? 5 teams are offering you that deal. Now, at the same time, a whole bunch of teams from overseas, they were at NBA Summer League, they watched it, and they know the game. So I want y'all to understand, just because people are from Europe and they're not Americans, they're not dumb. They understand the game. They know exactly what's going on. Everything I'm explaining here, they know how it goes. So they watch NBA Summer League. They saw you play, and they know where you are on the scale. They know that you're a guy who's going to get training camp invites, but that does not mean that you're going to make a roster. So therefore, they're going to reach out to you, and they're going to say, look, we know that you're going to have some teams offering you NBA training camp deals, but this is what we can offer you. Because if you go to training camp, they're going to say, all right, if you go to training camp, you're guaranteed to make 50 grand. They're going to give you a check for $50,000 for coming to training camp, but you're not guaranteed to make the roster. So you might get cut, not make that team, the Wizards, because you committed to going to their training camp, and now you ain't got no job. You're asked out of a job. Now you're a free agent worldwide. But if you take our deal, this is the European team calling you. Let's say this is the team in Valencia, Spain, calls you and says, yo, we're in the Euro League. We'll give you a guaranteed contract right now. We'll give you a guaranteed deal for 1 season for $800,000. We'll give you $800,000 for the whole season right now, or $300,000, or whatever amount of money they're going to give you. All right, I'm just making up these numbers. We'll give you $800,000. You got to sign the contract now, though. We need to make a signing right now. We're looking to sign an American guard for our roster for the entire upcoming season, but we're making a decision within the next 7 days. We're signing somebody. So we're letting you know right now that we're interested. Let us know what you think. Now, it's August. Mind you, if you were to turn that down, let's say you turn down that European team. You say, all right, thank you, Mr. Valencia team, but we're going to turn that down because I'm not ready to make a decision yet. And you're thinking about taking one of those training camp deals. And let's say you turn down the European deal in Valencia. And then let's say a team in Belgium reaches out to you and they offer you $500,000. And the team in Russia reaches out, they offer you $600,000. And you get like 5 offers overseas. So you got 5 offers to go to NBA training camp. You got 5 offers to go play overseas. Here's the difference between the two. The overseas offers are guaranteed deals. If you sign the contract, you are guaranteed to get that money, or at least contractually you're guaranteed to get paid. They're obligated to pay you that amount of money for the whole season. which means you're in that deal and you cannot leave it to go to an NBA team no matter what you're doing. You're there. You're in Spain, you're in Belgium, you're in Russia, wherever you sign. But if you turn those down and you wait until mid to late September to go to a training camp, all those European deals are gone. All the best deals in Europe get signed in the summer. Those European teams are like, we want a player to commit to us right now. We don't want anybody that's like, well, let me go to NBA training camp, and if I don't make it, then I'll come play with y'all. No, they don't do that. They make you make a decision and commit in the summer. So you say, all right, I'm gonna go play in Europe. I'm gonna take this deal. It doesn't matter if the Washington Wizards, they have 5 guards under contract, 3 of them got injured and 2 of them got traded. So now they got 5 open roster spots for guards. And you're like, shit, if I go into that training camp, I might have made the Wizards, but it's too late because you already committed to a team in Europe. Now, again, I'm just making up these scenarios. It doesn't always happen exactly like this, but everything I'm explaining to you is factually the way that it works, okay? But the exact scenarios can vary, of course. You take that deal in Europe, you're there for the whole season, but you have guaranteed money, whatever amount of money it is. You take the training camp deal, you're gambling. You might make the roster, you might not. Now, let's say you go to the Wizards training camp or the Thunder training camp, and you make the roster. All right, guarantee you made the roster. Congratulations. You're gonna have a partially guaranteed contract, which means not until a certain date, and it's usually some date in January where contracts become guaranteed. If you're on the roster by that point, then you got a deal. But if you get cut anytime up through there, look, you might make the roster and then get cut 10 days into the season. Now you don't have a job all over again. All the best jobs in Europe, when I say best jobs, I mean the most money, those jobs are already gone because a bunch of other Americans who had the same deal that you had, they had training camp invites and they had European offers, they took the European offer. So all the best deals in Europe get taken way before NBA training camps even begin. So this is why players have to choose. Do I want the guaranteed money and go to Europe, or do I want to gamble on myself, bet on myself, and go to this NBA training camp? And it's not just 100% betting on yourself, because you're gambling not only on what you can do on the court, because you already know what you can do, but you're gambling on what is the roster situation going to be. Is somebody going to get traded? You don't know who's going to get traded, where somebody's going to sign as a free agent. Somebody might get injured. These are all things that you had to factor into this bet that you're going to make if you're going to go to an NBA training camp with non-guaranteed money against a guaranteed deal to go play in Europe. But the thing is, you might not want to go to Europe. You might have a family in the United States. Your kids might be in school. Your wife doesn't want to go to Europe. You've never been overseas. You don't want to leave the country. You want to be close to home. All these things. You want to play in the NBA. It might just be your ego and your emotions. You want to play in the NBA. Who doesn't want to play in the NBA? Who grows up playing basketball in America? Everybody does. So all of these things you have to factor in. And this is why a player might go play at a high level school like Duke or UCLA or something, have a solid career and be a pretty good player, and then they go play overseas and you never hear of them again, and you're like, yo, whatever happened to such and such? He was on Duke 5 years ago. He was pretty good in the Final Four, and I ain't seen him since. What happened to that dude? He been playing overseas the whole time. And this is what happens when somebody goes overseas and let's say they play good. Let's say our same scenario. That's you. You played at Michigan. You had training camp offers. You turned them down. You took the deal in Europe. Now, let's say you went to Spain and you took that deal for a EuroLeague team and they guaranteed you $500,000 your first year. You went over there. You played good. The team did satisfactorily well. You played pretty well, and the team likes you. They're like, yo, we want to sign you again next year. Maybe we'll give you a 2-year deal. Maybe we'll give you a little bit more money. And they probably give you a little bit more money to stay. They might give you a longer contract, maybe a 2-year contract, and you're going to stay. They're going to give you a nicer car and a nicer house because they like you so much. They like the way you fit in with the town. They like the way you work with your teammates. All the fans like you. The management likes you. The coaches like you. The team seems to be getting better when you're on the court. They're going to give you a better deal the next year, and you're going to stay there. And then next year and the next year, and your contracts keep getting bigger and bigger because they want to keep you. That continuity matters. But if you were to bounce around, this is what happens in Europe. Yeah, let's say you played for that team in Spain and you did your thing, but you're like, no, I don't want to play for them anymore. I'm going to play for this team in Greece because they offer me a little bit more money. Here's the thing. If you go from Spain to Greece, now you got to establish yourself all over again. They don't know you in Greece. The coach doesn't know you. The management doesn't know you. The fans don't know you. You don't know your teammates. You don't know how good that team's going to be. What if the team in Greece has a worse season with you than they had without you? Now they might say they don't want you. They don't want you to come back. Now you're a free agent, and you might go back to that team in Spain and say, hey, team in Spain, can I come back and play for you again? They might say, yeah. They might say, yeah, but, you know, we gave you $500,000 the first year you was with us. Well, we only got $300,000 for you this time because you didn't stick around. Now they can offer you a worse deal because you didn't stay. The continuity matters. You'll make more money if you stay with the same team year after year after year. Slowly that money will build up, especially if the team is successful and you're successful. All of these things factor in. Or they might also say, look, hey, Mr. Player who played at Michigan, we love your game, but when you left us, we signed a different American player at your same position, and he played pretty good last year, and we just offered him another deal for the next year, so we don't have a roster spot for you. We don't have any money to give you, so we can't take you. We would love to have you, but we can't. Or they might just say we're not interested because we signed somebody else, and we told you to stay, but you said you wanted to go chase bigger money in Greece. Now you're asked out. So these are all things that, and this could be, I could go on for hours talking about this stuff, but these are the kind of things that players have to consider when they're playing basketball. And everything that I just talked about, most of what I just talked about here, I just been talking about money and just a roster situation. But there's a whole lot of other things that factor in. Again, the success of the team. If the team is not winning, no matter how great you are individually, a team might see you as a liability. You're a guy who, when you're on the team doesn't win. You could be putting up great stats, but if the team's not winning, that team in Europe may not see you as good. And as opposed to the way we look at things in the United States, somebody could be averaging 25 on a team in the NBA, but the team is trash. We're like, well, it's not his fault that the team is trash. He should be an all-star anyway. No. In Europe, if you're putting up great stats, but the team is trash, that means you're trash. There's something wrong with you. Something about you is causing the team to lose, and you might not be able to play for that team the next year, regardless of your stats. They are more team-oriented, whereas in the United States, we are raised to be more individual-oriented, even though everybody's trying to win. I'm not saying that the team doesn't matter in the United States. I'm not saying the individual doesn't matter in Europe, but it's weighed a lot heavier team-wise in Europe than it is in the United States. At least I'm talking about watching TV on the NBA, or watching NBA games, okay? And the other thing is you got to factor in family situations. As people get older, you might have a wife, you might have kids. You want to keep moving your kids around to a different country every year. You want to keep bringing your wife to a different country every single season. Would you, let's say you had kids. Let's say you're a professional athlete, right? And you've established a baseline of making $500,000 a year, right? You've been making $500,000 a year for the last 3 years. And you got a wife and you got 3 kids. And you create a certain lifestyle for your wife and your 3 kids and yourself based on making $500,000 every single year in Europe. You've been killing in Europe. Now, the San Antonio Spurs call you because they heard you've been doing your thing, and they say, yo, we see what you've been doing in Europe. We're interested. We'd like to invite you to training camp this fall. Now, you got a dilemma. You've always wanted to play in the NBA because you're American. Every American who plays ball wants to play in the NBA. Now you're looking at your shot. You haven't been in the NBA yet. This is your shot to play in the NBA. They just called you and said they want to invite you to training camp. Here's the problem. Your lifestyle is based on making $500,000 a year minimum. If you were to make the NBA roster with the San Antonio Spurs, they're going to pay you, let's just say they'll pay you $600,000. So your lifestyle will actually get better. You got more money. You live in the United States finally. You can say that you finally made it to the NBA, which does matter. Don't act like it doesn't matter. It does matter. But here's the challenge for all that. In order for you to get that $600,000 deal and make the NBA and live in the USA and bring your family home finally, you got to make it through training camp. And training camp, the Spurs have 3 open roster spots, but they drafted 3 people at your position out of the draft this year, and you're not sure you're going to make the roster or whatever the situation is. Maybe they only got 1 open roster spot, and it looks like they can either sign a big man or a guard, and you're a guard. So you don't know if they're going to take a big or a guard. They might decide to take the best big from training camp, or they might take the best guard from training camp. And even though you might think you were the best guard at training camp, if they decide to take a guard, they might not think you were the best. They might say, no, we're going to take him instead. Now, if you do that, if you take that offer to training camp, and let's say training camp, they guarantee you $50,000. They'll give you $50,000 just for coming to training camp. And I don't know if that's the exact number, but you do get something for coming to training camp, but it ain't $500,000. Let's say you go to training camp, don't make it. You get that little check for going to training camp. Now you have no job. And now you turn around and say, hey, Europe, I'm available again because I didn't make it in the NBA. I didn't make that training camp roster in the NBA. All the teams in Europe are going to say, hey, we know that you're good. We know your resume. We've been watching you the last 3 years. Here's the problem. All our big contracts, those $500,000 contracts, we gave them to other players who committed to us back in August, back when you told us you wanted to wait on the NBA training camp offer. So now, yes, you can come play for us, but the only money we got available for you is $100,000. So yeah, you can come back to Europe, but you're going to get a deal for $100,000. You was making $500 the last 3 years. Now you're making $100. Now you watching this, who may not be this player, you might be saying, shit, Dre, $100,000. If $100,000 is a step backwards, I'm happy. Right? Some of you might be thinking that way. But if you were used to making $500 and then all of a sudden you're making $100, that's a huge change. Just imagine if you was making $50,000 a year at your job, and then all of a sudden your job tells you, well, we're going to pay you $10,000. All right, would that affect your life in some way? I think it would. Now, at higher levels of money, depending on how people manage their money and depending on the type of lifestyle you live, where you live, what kind of cars you drive, what kind of schools you got your kids in, you know, what you spend your money on, it may have more or less of an impact based on the way that you live. But I just want you to understand the basic. I just want you to understand overall, generally, what I'm talking about here and why a player would take a deal in Europe and then you never see them again or never hear from them again, because they'd rather stay in Europe. Because every year, as I've said already, when you stay with that team or you stay in the same country where you're established, you'll make more money, more money, more money. And listen, the lifestyle living in Europe, when you're playing at those levels, at least from what I've heard, because I didn't play in the Euro League, but from what I've heard, is a very comfortable lifestyle. They take care of you over there. And they take care of you. It's not like in the NBA, they give you a check and they say you figure it out for yourself. You're American. You know how to find rent an apartment and get a car. Do that yourself. In Europe, they'll take care of a lot of that for you. Your housing will be taken care of. They'll give you a car. They might take care of your meals. And you don't have to pay for those things. These are expenses that you don't have to pay for, at least as long as you're playing. So imagine how much money you save. You don't have to pay for your crib. You don't have to pay for your car. Might not have to pay for your food. You don't have to pay for your medical. In the NBA, you don't have to pay for your medical either. But these are some things that people had to factor in. Players had to factor in. Again, considering your family, your kids, how old you are, how much longer you plan on playing, what kind of life you want to live in general when you're done with basketball. All of this has to go into the thought process that a player goes through when they're deciding, do I want to try to make it to the NBA, or do I want to sit at the end of the bench on the NBA team where I could get cut? When you're at the end of the bench on the NBA team, you could be released. Now you're out of a deal, and if you try to go back to Europe, now you got to establish yourself from zero all over again, even though you was the guy for 5 years straight in Europe. Now you left. Now somebody took your spot on that team you was the guy on. They like that guy, so they don't want you back. Now you got to go to a new team in Europe and reestablish yourself all over again. Is it even worth it? And considering all of this ain't a video game, right? You only got 10 years to make money. So do you really want to make that gamble of taking, if you made $500,000 every year for 10 years, that's $5 million. But let's say you made $500,000 for 3 years, so you got 150 so far, 1.5 so far, and then you decide to go to the NBA and chase that training camp deal, don't make it, and then you had to take $100,000 the next year. So now you only got 1.6. And then next year you work your way up to 200,000. Now you have 1.8. Then the next year you work your way up to 250,000. Now you at 2,050,000, 2,500,000, 2,050,000. Now that 5 million that you were going to make, you might end up only making 3 of that 5 million over the course of your career. Over your whole career, instead of making 5 million, if you would have just stayed in Europe, now you only made 3 million. Because you chased that dream of going and playing in the NBA with the training camp. So again, I'm making this video and giving you all this context so that y'all understand that when players make their decisions about where to play ball, or if they're going to play ball, or if they're going to go for this deal or go for that deal, where they're going to try for this or try for that, they had to factor in all of this stuff that the casual fan or even a basketball player never even thinks about. So hopefully this gives y'all some things to think about. And there's many other things, like I said, that could be said about all of this when it comes to ball overseas. But I want to make this, I try to keep this one as short as possible to make sure everybody understands it. But I'm going to do a bunch more videos. I've already done a bunch, more than anybody else, on overseas ball. You probably see them over here. I'm going to do a bunch more videos on overseas basketball moving forward. So stay tuned, subscribe wherever you're watching this. Make sure you subscribe. If you didn't get the free download, 46 things to know before you go play ball overseas, go to balloverseas.com/46. If I remember, I will have it in the video description, so you can just click that link. It's a free download. You get it immediate to your phone. It'll take you 5 seconds. You'll immediately get it to your phone. That's balloverseas.com/46. After that, then you can get the book, the Overseas Basketball Blueprint. Will ship that to you free. You don't have to pay for the book. Just pay a small shipping charge. And that's that. Everybody work on your game. Dre all day.